Thank you very much for staying tuned. We are now up to the second segment of this development focus with Jide Ojo. My second guest on the show this morning, 24th of March, 2021, is a civil society advocate, the Chief Executive Officer of Nigerian Women Trust Fund. She's a very experienced development worker. She combines both media and civil society expertise. I'm talking of Alaja Mufuliat Fijabi. You're welcome on the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's a pleasure. Congratulations on Nigerian Women Trust Fund's 10th anniversary. Can you quickly run us through what have been your major achievements in the last decade?
Okay, thank you very much. The Nigerian Women Trust Fund was set up 10 years ago, precisely March 2011, as a result of collaboration between civil society organizations, development partners, and the government through Ministry of Women Affairs and Social Development then. Specifically, the organization was set up to close the gender gaps in governance, especially considering the alarming performance of women at elections. The 2011 election comes into play here. And the purpose of that organization is to ensure that there is a national mechanism that is closely following through on how women's inclusion is treated as a front burner issue in Nigeria. So in the last 10 years, the organization has been strategically positioned and has been providing technical support, most importantly, to Nigerian women, both young and older women, to build their capacity to have the necessary qualifications to participate in leadership processes. And when we say leadership, it's not just about elective positions, but also appointive and other aspects of life that requires women's input, that requires women's participation in decision-making processes. So for us, the technical base to support Nigerian women in terms of capacity is one of our milestones. And as I speak today, we've mentored more than 3,000 young women. Wow. And we have seen a lot of these young women take on position at the local, at the state, and at the national level. Some of them have moved on to become elected representatives, and some of them, after contesting elections, have been appointed into various advisory positions, both at the state and at the national level, and of course at the local level. When I say local, I mean at the local government level as well. And we've also seen a lot of them take on leadership positions in different other aspects of life, aside governance. So the Nigerian Women Trust Fund is also known for its advisory input into policy processes, into constitutional review processes, as well as other enabling framework to ensure that the governance process of Nigeria is truly inclusive and is truly representative of women's voice. The Nigerian Women Trust Fund over the last decade has also been strong in terms of advocating for the need for the recognition of the reality that inclusion of women is not just a lip service attitude or a lip service advocacy, but a service of inclusion is one that is founded strongly on development process. And in this case, when you look at the Agenda 2030 at the UN level, and when you look at the Sustainable Development Goals, you would agree with me that approaching inclusion of women in governance is necessary for us to be able to achieve the development agenda. So I would say that the Nigerian Women Trust Fund has been contributing significantly in this regard by taking inclusion as a development agenda. Thank you.
Now, can you name one or two of your alumni, those whose capacity you built, who have later become elected into parliament or holding a position, those you could call your ambassadors?
Well, I can call Ramatulai, who is currently the secretary of AMAC. I can talk about Abiodun Esiet. These are people who have passed through the Nigerian Women Trust Fund. They are both at the level of AMAC in Abuja. And I can also talk about young women who have become student union government leaders. I can also talk about those who have won elections. We have some who have just been recently appointed into advisory positions in Kaduna and Kano. I can't remember all of their names.
Okay, so this year, 2021, the International Women's Day celebration took place on the 8th of March. And it's a month-long celebration, we are told. Now, the hashtag for this year was Choose to Challenge. What is Nigerian Women Trust Fund choosing to challenge?
The Nigerian Women Trust Fund on this month, or an occasion of the International Women's Day, March 8th, have chosen to challenge the non-inclusion of women in governance. That's at the first level. And at the second level, we have also chosen to challenge violence against women and girls. One of the areas that the Nigerian Women Trust Fund also works around is on issues of violence against women. We have what we call the Ending Violence Against Women and Girls network, of young women across some states in Nigeria, like Adamawa, like Nasarawa State, like Cross River.
Was that the program where you appointed me as a mentor?
Yes.
That was last year?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you were one of the mentors. So I'm emphasizing this because a lot of times when we talk about women's leadership and women's inclusion in governance, we fail to address some of those barriers that make it impossible for young women, for girls to become matured leaders in the country. So violence against women is a critical barrier to women's advancement when it comes to leadership. So as we tackle the need for the inclusion of women, we're also, as Nigerian Women Trust Fund, not taking our eyes away from the fact that those barriers that limit women's participation in various processes need to be addressed.
Okay. Now, you've chosen to challenge violence against women and girls and non-inclusion of women in governance and in politics. Now, your work, if you look at the political terrain in Nigeria, the figures does not augur well for Nigerian women in terms of election into parliament or political office. I did a story last 2 weeks in commemoration of the International Women's Day, and it was very difficult to document the rise, as we see in other climes, in Uganda, in South Africa, in Nordic countries, where there is almost parity between the women and men in politics and in election. Why is Nigeria's own case different?
Okay, the story of the Nigerian Women Trust Fund cannot be told without looking back at why it came into existence. It was actually established because of that challenge of having women win elective position and also having women becoming appointed representatives. So the story of Nigeria is not one that we can take on the surface when it comes to the percentage of women in leadership positions generally. And it's also a sad thing, considering the fact that we have women who are Nigerians who occupy international positions and are performing excellently well. So we have quite a number of factors that we can point at as responsible factors for limiting the participation of women in these processes and for contributing to the continued reduction of percentage of women who find themselves in this position. As we speak today, we're at the bottom. I think we're about 187 when you look at the Interparliamentary Union rating of countries with women with higher level of representation. As we speak, we're less than 5%. If you look at it from the National Assembly representation in the country in terms of women's presence. So one of the major factors that affect women is that of patriarchy, where it is still believed that women should not be women should only be seen and not heard, and the fact that women shouldn't bother so much about occupying positions, especially outside of the homes. This is still silently killing the efforts of civil rights activists, of gender activists, to ensure that women get to where they need to get to in terms of being there to represent not just themselves but Nigeria as a country. And when you look at the monetization of the electoral process, this is a big challenge. Leadership representation is no longer seen as voluntary service or as something coming out of passion of the need to serve, but it is seen rather as an avenue to make money. And we know that men have been there in the game for a very long time. So catching up is a challenge for women unless there's a total overhaul of the system, where you'd find that, of course, the electoral process is demonetized, and you find that there is recognition of the need to serve, rather than the need to get the resources that is there. And sadly also, you would find that the level of lack of accountability in terms of people who occupy positions, also make it difficult, for women to come into the play, because most times they see that women come in with a lot of passion, with a lot of interest. And I would also like to mention that we need to also acknowledge the fact that for Nigeria as a country to advance, we need to make the playing ground leveled, so that both men and women can participate equally, without any injustice or without any unfairness. Because if we give room for equal participation, it's going to advance our country, not just technologically and not just economic-wise, but it's going to move Nigeria to a level where the needs of both men and women are taken very seriously and are recognized. It's also going to add value, to our GDP. It's going to make it possible for a lot of responsibilities in terms of serving Nigerians as a whole. You can imagine where you consistently have women as the entire member of houses of assembly in some states in Nigeria. Of course, when they set up a committee, for example, for women, you find men occupying such positions. And I think, to the best of my knowledge, I don't think if you have men in a committee meant for women, they are going to perform excellently well. They may have the experiences, but they cannot feel what the women folk will feel in terms of, performing certain assignments. We find that a lot of the times also there is technical gap in some of the decisions taken. If you look at maternal mortality, for example, you have people taking decisions around that, and there are no women. That's already a challenge. You find that in the building and structuring of schools, there is no technical input into how it's managed to ensure that you have water running all the way during school hours. Some girls still don't go to school today monthly because of their monthly costs. This is due to poor planning. Nobody is advising them that you're putting this school here. What happens to the bathrooms? What happens to water running through this system?
Sorry, because of time, can we look at this issue of insecurity and how it affects care child education? We have had a number of abductions. We thought we've had it all after Chibok and Dapchi. Now we have had Jangebe, 333 female students abducted in one night. We have currently students of School of Forestry in Africa in Kaduna. They have not been released. Majority of the 39 students are said to be female students of their school. Is this of any concern to Women Trust Fund?
Yes, it's of great concern to us, and not just the Nigerian Women Trust Fund, to every parent, to every Nigerian. It's a serious cause for concern. And I think that the government needs to step up action to ensure that there's security for children when they go to school, and for adults as well. I don't think that this should be politicized. You know, we cannot afford to play with the future of Nigeria, because these young children are Nigerians' future. They are the ones who will tell the stories of Nigeria, and they're the ones who would be there to take on the mantle of leadership. So it's something that touches us. We're very sad about it. We do not appreciate the fact that those abducted have not been brought back. So I still use this platform to call on the government to do the needful, considering the fact that these girls have been exposed. They need protection. They need to be brought back to their parents. It's not a crime to go to school. It's part of development, and I hope that this will be addressed very seriously, and the girls and all other children in captivity will be brought back.
Okay, let's look at issue of elections. How much of gender mainstreaming do we have into the electoral planning and our electoral conduct of elections? I know for sure that INEC has a gender policy. Are you following through with implementation to hold the commission accountable on the basis of its own gender policy?
Okay, the Nigerian Women Trust Fund, we also have a tool which is a strategic tool for implementation on inclusion of women in governance, which is called the Gender and Election Watch Room. This Gender and Election Watch Room is actually used to examine how elections and its activities impact on women and men differently. So drawing from the INEC gender policy, we also work and collaborate with INEC, and we look at it more from an angle of the need for the National EMB INEC to be more proactive in terms of supporting women through targeted interventions that would enhance women's opportunities, enhance women's spaces to be able to participate actively in the electoral process as voters and as candidates. So that's why we are very hopeful as Nigerian Women Trust Fund with the current effort of the Independent National Electoral Commission on access to polling units that is going to make it possible, hopefully, for more women to participate in elections. Because before now, what we have seen are polling units that are far apart, especially not covering new areas, which makes it difficult ordinarily for women to come out on election day to vote. And we're also very concerned about some pockets of violence that usually happen around elections. We just saw what happened in Ekiti. So we are also a critical stakeholder, you know, in ensuring that there is some kind of confidence building in the electoral process in Nigeria. Because if voters, especially women, are still afraid of security and they are not confident in the electoral process, it's a major challenge, and it's something that needs to be tackled very effectively, you know, so that people will wake up on election day and would have the confidence to go out there to cast their vote on election day. So I still encourage INEC as the national EMB to continue and sustain its efforts in implementing its national gender policy, and to also appreciate the fact that Nigeria is a big country. Yes, it's implementing the gender policy, but it has not reached every part of Nigeria, because the fact that we still have low percentage of women in these positions also means that there is need for doubling up of effort. And it's not just for INEC, it's also for us stakeholders in the electoral process.
Okay, so 2 in 1, National Gender Policy 2006, where is Nigeria on that? And then the President Muhammadu Buhari, during his 2019 presidential election campaign, and the Women's Center did promise 35% affirmative action in the appointment of minister, his cabinet. Why have you not held the president to his own promise? electoral promise?
Okay, the National Gender Policy 2006, I'm also aware that the Ministry of Women Affairs is also trying to review it now. But until we have the reviewed copy signed, we still base our discussions around the 2006 one. And it stipulates that there should be a minimum of 35% presence of either male or female in any position in the country. And we've seen that that is not happening in most platforms. Only 1 or 2 institutions in Nigeria can boast that they have close to 30 or 33% of female representation on their platform. So yes, I was in the hall when the president at the National Women's Center in 2018, in the lead up to the 2019 elections, promised that he's going to ensure that the national gender policy is implemented by giving minimum of 35% appointed positions to women. That has not happened. It was very striking and interesting for me to hear last week in the news that he's also advocating that in the ongoing constitutional review process that relevant clauses should be included to allow for more participation of women. That's interesting. I hope that it will be addressed and that it will be taken care of. I also heard and read on the Twitter handle of the Senate president, that having inclusion of women in the ongoing constitutional review process is something that is of priority to him. So we've listened to all of these promises severally, but we haven't seen it happen. So I really hope that the Ninth Assembly would break ground and would create that necessary milestone historically to tell the story that they made the difference. Until we see it happen, I personally don't want to believe it again. We're advocating and hoping that it becomes a true reality. And currently, some women's group, including the Nigerian Women Trust Fund, are in the court, to actually ask for the interpretation of that 35% affirmative action. So we're also waiting for an outcome from there to see whether it's fair to continue to have a democratic process that is not truly inclusive of a population of almost 50% of the entire population of the country.
Okay. Thank you very much. That will be the size of our program this morning. Our time is fast spent. We couldn't take call because of the shortness of time. But don't worry. It's going to a fresh edition of this program will be on next Wednesday by the grace of God. Let me use this opportunity to thank Alaja Mufuliat Fijabi for coming on this show. We do hope when next we call you, you will oblige us of your presence. We wish you and your team at the Nigerian Women Trust Fund the best of best of luck as you work tirelessly for women emancipation in Nigeria. And I will commend you to I will recommend to you to maybe do more of role modeling. We just have Okonjo-Iweala becoming WTO president, Mrs. Amina Mohammed is Deputy Secretary General of the UN, Ms. Alakija, and all of those people. Perhaps you need to bring them and role model them so that young Nigerians, young politicians, young women can also aspire to their level. Thank you very much once again, and do stay safe. COVID-19 is real. Please stay safe and stay blessed. Thank you.